Welcome to my happy place, my compost setup. I think I'd rather make compost, use compost more than going shopping or buying shoes. Goodness sakes. It's a little windy today, but we can handle it. So today we're going to talk about a question I get a lot or often, and that is, how long can you keep putting materials in a compost batch? It's a good one. But first, I want to cover two very important aspects about composting. One is, should you compost in layers? And the other is, how do you know when to turn your compost? So let's get started. Now I'm going to be turning this batch of compost into this bin. And I want to talk to you first about layering, because I made this batch of compost 24 hours ago, and it got up to 160 degrees in 24 hours. We'll talk about that in a second. But when I made this pile of compost, or this batch, which was, let's see, I used kelp, leaves we collected last fall, a little bit of fish bone meal, lots of food scraps, Timothy hay, and I just kept putting it all together and mixed it as I went. I have found in my 40 years of making compost that creating layers, layering the materials, like grass clippings, oh yeah, I put grass clippings in there too, but when you layer something like grass clippings or leaves, especially damp leaves, these materials tend to collapse and then felt, like felting, and that tends to stop the circulation of air and moisture both vertically through the pile and just kind of traps it like hitting the ceiling. So when you make compost, go ahead and use your pitchfork and just churn and stir and scratch it all up as you make it and as you add water. Now the second thing I want to talk about is, how do you know when to turn your compost? That's a very good question, because if you don't turn your compost often enough or in a timely manner, then what happens is the microbial action, those microbes, they begin to get starved for fresh food and oxygen. And just like us, microbes need food and oxygen, well, and moisture too. So this is now cooled down from 170 degrees down to 160. As soon as your thermometer, I'm hoping you're using a thermometer, just starts to drop in temperature or decrease in temperature, that is your cue to turn to compost. Got it? Okay. Now as far as adding materials to your compost pile, how long can you do this? Well, after you make a batch of compost and it heats up, it gives you about a 2-week window to add your food scraps, because you want to add them during the hottest time, the hottest period of your batch of compost. And assuming that you'll have finished compost in 6 weeks, that's about 2 weeks. When you turn your compost, by the way, it will drop down in temperature and then rise again a little bit, and then turn it again, it'll drop and come up again and then drop. It's just like a roller coaster. So it's just that 2-week window, and you want to make sure you bury those food scraps, in the middle of the pile when you turn it. So that's your window, is 2 weeks, okay? If you draw it out too long, or you just keep adding food scraps for weeks, it's like, well, what my father would call watering down a good martini or a glass of wine. So 2 weeks is your window. Something else I want to show you is, after you make your batch of compost, is to cover it with some sort of Oh, like here it's foam insulation. You can use a piece of carpet, but it keeps the heat in the compost pile as well as the moisture. So I can put my hand here and I feel that it's very hot. Well, it's just like warm steam coming out. You can see there Compost Cowboy is telling us, let's see, it's at 160. Again, it's dropped down from 170 degrees Fahrenheit. And the other thing is the batch of compost was, let's see, all the ingredients came to about this height, and it's already dropped a good 8 inches. So that's another indicator that it's time to turn the pile. Okay, I'm going to set up a ladder. All this thumping around, by the way, is the wind. Let's see here. There we go. We're going to put the camera on a little tripod and give you an angle, something like that. Cool, huh? Okay, that angle work for you? Here's my trusty pitchfork, and you'll notice it has a flat end here, and that's because I shaved off about a foot because it's a tight area here, and well, I'm short, right? Then we need, everybody needs pink gloves for turning compost. Whoop, wrong hand. Never mind the holes at the end of my fingers. Okay, first we'll start by introducing Compost Cowboy. I found him in a batch of kelp, face down, kind of like a little Gumby guy. He's my composting partner. And then here we go. My compost thermometer, 160. I think I'll just put it right here. Yeah. Whew, it's warm. And lift my cover. Oh, it's going to be steaming. I'm going to set this over here because the wind is blowing. All right, I can tell already we've got white. Oh, yeah. So we have white powdery substance, and that's called actinomycetes, which is what's doing all the work for you while you sleep. Okay, we'll just do a little turning. Whoa. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, it's hot. It's steaming. And then what we do is just like this. Here we go. Alrighty, so I moved this batch into this bin, and I don't know if you can see, but I left, a good 4 pitchforkfuls in this bin because I'm going to make a new batch, and I'm going to use the old materials, or the active microbes. I'm going to use those to seed the next batch with all this wonderful working microbes. It's kind of like inoculating yogurt or sourdough. It just kind of keeps things rolling along. Leaves, however, have plenty of microbes on them, and so you don't need to use like compost starters or inoculants or anything like that. Those are silly. All right, I got the cover on the new batch. I've got the thermometer set up and Compost Cowboy, and some takeaways from today. By the way, thanks for joining me. Sorry about all the rattling if you heard it. Is you can add materials to your compost pile. By the way, I'm kind of huffing and puffing. Really good upper body workout for this morning. Yes. Was it functional fitness? This is what I like to call it. So some takeaways is when you're making a batch of compost, when it gets to a hot temperature of say 140, between 140 and 160, that's your window of about 2 weeks where you can continue to add food scraps and bury them deep. The other thing is you want to make your compost kind of like not in layers, but just stir it up and add water as you make it. And you want to make it all at once, right? And then to turn your compost, how do you know when? And that's when your temperature indicated on your thermometer says, oops, temperature's starting to dip, time to turn. So I hope that was helpful. Remember, keep your hands in the dirt, gardeners, and your eyes on the stars. Have a great day. Cheers.